Hey y'all, Scotty Real.
And the dude here.
And we just wanted to shout out to our crew of listeners, growers, cannabis professionals, and recreational tokers.
Otherwise known as the Dude Grows Crew.
Who every week come through solid and donate their hard-earned money to produce this show.
It's the support from our listeners that directly produces the Dude Grow Show and keeps the unbiased grow knowledge pumping out week after week after week, guys. You are the DGC, and there's strength in numbers.
So please show us some love and help produce the next show by going to dudegrows.com and making a small donation. Respect. Come on, brother. Let's get high and start the show.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Dude Grow Show, coming straight out of Denver, Colorado, bringing you marijuana grow knowledge, news, and culture.
At the tone, the time will be 4:20. Exactly.
The listeners have heard us for a while. Should we get Steve on here with Aquaponics Source so we can do that clip with us all hanging out and talking aquaponics?
Absolutely, man. And just another great example of one of our listeners reaching out to us and saying, hey, guys, I got something to contribute. I know something. And we love it, man. The reason we do this is to be part of the community and to get to know some of the progressive growers out there, man. So it's been great. Let us know if you guys got something to share or you got something unique. So Steve stepped up, and we appreciate the hell out of him.
Word. Well, here it is, guys. A grower sitting in with Dude Grows, Scotty Real, and Steve from the Aquaponics Source out here in Colorado, talking about how to grow some weed with fish. Yes.
Shit, yeah, man. Absolutely. This was killer.
So this is Courtney from Colorado. Definitely bigging up the dudes from the Dude Grow Show. You gotta check them out. Doing this talk with this brother, the good essence of, you know what I mean? You definitely want to keep it real. DudeGrows.com.
What's up, y'all? We're back. We're back hanging out, and we're going to talk more aquaponics. Why? Because it's pretty freaking cool. We had this on a previous episode. I don't know the number off the top of my head. Do you, Scotty?
It was a 40, I don't know, somewhere in the mid-40s.
We're going to get this cool search thing on our site, I think, Scotty, where that No Agenda show, you can search, I think, and put a word in, and it'll actually search your whole episode. Like it's some type of weird software.
Right on, man.
Pretty interesting. But
in cahoots with Google.
Like I said before, the dude just used aquaponics a little bit. I mean, all I have is a couple fish tanks, and I use that water on my rooted clones or small little tiny herb trays. So that's
Does that even count, man?
I think because it
kind of counts as it's like almost the same as.
Let's ask. We got Steve here, guys, from the Aquaponics Source. How you doing, dude?
Great. Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Awesome. Let's does that count? Let's start there. The fact that I use some fish water to feed my my smaller plants and just refresh my tank with plain water, is that the simplest form of aquaponics?
I guess you could kind of call that aquaponics. It'd be more
cool. Can I put that on my
organic
LinkedIn,
hydroponics?
Man? Okay, cool. Nice.
But yeah, let's get into it with Steve here. How long? Like I said again, he's over at the aquaponicssource.com. You guys got a storefront in Longmont?
Yes, sir.
As well as a good online presence here. And how long have you been with the Aquaponics Source?
Been for the Aquaponics Source now for about a year and a half, and we've been working on aquaponics there, aquaponic cannabis for the program for a little over 2 years.
Yeah, that's what really struck a chord with me, is that it's not just aquaponics, but he's refining a cannabis recipe.
Yep.
Pretty damn cool, man.
The other nice thing about it is it translates over to everything else that we do with the fruit trees and all the other heavy feeding stuff. So it's, we learn from the cannabis and can translate it to all of everything else that we do. So it's really fun to work with.
Yeah, I was talking to you earlier. You said something interesting to me. You said there's certain people in other states that are actually lining up to grow cannabis, and they're practicing right now.
Yep.
They're in practice mode. What do they practice? What's a good plant to practice on if you're practicing to be a good cannabis grower?
Sure. So a great plant to use as an analogy plant to learn to grow cannabis if you're in a state that you're awaiting legalization is a tomato plant. As far as nutrient-wise, they're very similar as far as how much they use calcium and magnesium and other things, and they're very good to get used to your nutrient levels and get used to growing with your tinkering and all that stuff.
Yeah, right on. That's what I tell people, man. Become a good grower. If you want to grow good weed, you're going to have to learn just the basic principles of growing.
Exactly.
And our classes revolve around, I'm sure there's a few different things. Growing aquaponically indoors or outdoors, or either way it's going to apply the knowledge base.
We actually touch on both. We cover over the pros and cons of each method, and some of the unique problems that you run into in greenhouse grows, and how Colorado is some of the first places to run into some of those problems thanks to our legalization here and the legalization of greenhouse grows. So
yeah. Well,
I want to get into it with because of course I have some concerns, but let's target like the person, which I'm sure your classes, I'm assuming, target that they this is their first time they want to grow, or it doesn't have to be their first time. I'm sure there's growers like me that would love to learn how to do this better, and I'm interested because, like Scotty a few episodes ago was saying, he's been growing indoors for so long, it's just getting boring for him. So when new things like this come along, it definitely sparks my interest. So take it from a standpoint of somebody that most people, let's say they can hang up a 600-watt light, and what do they need from there to get going? I mean, is that the minimum to start growing aquaponically? We're not going to use any outdoor light. We're doing it indoors. So, like, what's the minimum light? And I don't want to say the minimum, but
yeah, changing your nutrient source is not going to affect lighting in any way. Your lighting is going to be the same as any soil.
I got a better question where probably would start off good. What's the minimum size container to be able to support your fish and your water to be able to grow and feed cannabis?
So I would say the minimum to do 2 plants would be 40 gallons at bare minimum, just because you need a certain water volume to maintain your pH, keep your microbes happy, and maintain a healthy enough microbe colony in your aquatic layer, along with enough water volume to keep your fish happy and enough water to keep your fish alive and producing enough nutrients for your plants.
And now, are we talking you could just set up a straight-up aquarium? I mean, I used to have a 50-gallon aquarium. It wasn't that big, you know. I mean, you could do something like that, and then you cycle the water? Is that's the concept?
Absolutely. So I actually have two of my mothers right above a 40-gallon breeder fish tank, and that's all they're in. So you don't need anything particularly special as long as you have a grow bed and a fish tank reservoir. That's all you need to get started.
Yeah, this is why I'm into aquaponics, man, because it's freaking cool, man.
The key to growing aquaponically, to make it work or not work, is how you set up the root system and how you plant them, and that's really the key to success or non-success.
Now, if you have a 40-gallon tank, I'm assuming that's for, you're not necessarily, that tank can support fish life. I guess you're not going to have, you're not doing that to have harvest fish. You're creating nutrient for the plants.
Correct.
I mean, you're not going to have big tilapia in there necessarily. What type of fish would you have in a 40-gallon?
So if you're going to do something as small as a 40-gallon, you could use Oscars or Pacu or any of your other smaller to medium-size aquarium fish. You can even do a straight-up community tank, and that would be perfectly fine as well. As long as you had enough fish to produce enough nitrates for your plants to be happy and get your nitrogen up and your phosphate availability, you'd be set.
Now, I mean, we've got 3 macronutrients that we always think about: N, P, and K.
Yep.
Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Different fish poop out different nutrient, the different fertilizer, I guess. Tell me how that works.
Absolutely. So if you're going to grow in an aquaponic cannabis system, you definitely want to make sure you have a good balance of about 50-50 carnivores to herbivores. The carnivores are going to consume more protein and thusly put out more nitrogen and in their waste, whereas the herbivores are going to produce more eat more plant matter for the most part. Most of them are omnivorous, but they'll produce a lot more phosphate available in the water. So you can kind of use that to adjust those two, and then you can simply add potassium carbonate or potassium bicarbonate as your potassium supplement.
What about the bloom booster fish? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Bloom booster fish. The best way to bloom boost
$250, man. It's a bloom booster fish, all right?
The best bloom booster we found through fish is giving them sugary fruits, actually pineapples and other stuff like that. Cool. You can actually, the same way you would add molasses to your soil grown, you can actually do something very similar by giving your fish very sugary fruit.
Wow. So, I mean, I always love talking about microbes. So in my situations, the microbes are eating the food, and then they're delivering it, using it as a delivery method to the plant. So we've got one more degree of separation in here. We've got the fish eating the food first. Do you use microbes in your soil?
So that's a great question. So how we have our system set up and why aquaponics is unique towards other systems is we use something called a dual root zone, where we use tall pots and we fill the bottom half of it with hydrogen. We put a layer of burlap or other root permeable material, and then we put our super soil mix above that. The super soil mix allows us to supplement any additional nutrients that we have. We pre-measure the amount of water that will go into that layer, reduce it by 1/3, and then we know we can add that amount of water into the soil layer and supplement any nutrients that we need to supplement in order to make that plant thrive and give it a little extra boost, especially during the end of flower. But the advantages to splitting it up and having the aquatic layer and the soil layer is we get the full biodiversity of all your terrestrial bacteria like you'd normally have in soil grown, and you get the full biodiversity of the aquatic bacteria and that lower layer that are actively being fed by your fish and everything else in the system.
Damn, you can tell Steve is the teacher of these classes, right? You actually instruct on these classes, don't you?
Absolutely.
And there's a cool video, guys, over on YouTube called Potent Ponics.
Correct. Potent Ponics
just
is our YouTube
Google
channel.
Potent Ponics, you'll pull up a cool, very simple if you want to understand. It's titled Growing Medical Marijuana with Aquaponics. But, man, that's like dropping knowledge. Where's your soundboard, Scotty? Aren't you supposed to hit in that little dropping knowledge clip?
Post-production, man. But you
All
are
right.
dropping science like Galileo dropped an orange, my friend.
What about when these systems are going? Is it more like that? Once you have an established system, everything's in harmony.
Mm-hmm.
You plug and pull plants out of that. Like you don't necessarily like that system just keeps going that bed. You don't like clean everything up and reset or anything.
Nope. So what we do is we'll move right now we have our separate system that we veg everything out in that we can just keep a light wall up just to maintain the veg lighting. And then what happens is once they're up to a certain size, we'll move them into the other grow beds in the greenhouse and move them out into the flowering area where, we'll lengthen the day at this time of year. But during the summertime and spring and fall, we don't need to at all. But we just move the pots around, and since the pots contain 95% of the roots, if I prune a little bit of the roots when I'm replanting it, that's okay too.
So just draw me a picture here. Let me get a picture in my head here. So we've got the pots sitting in, and is there water in the bottom of the pots? I remember we were talking about the hydroton layer and whatnot. So
Sure.
they're sitting in water?
Sure. So we make sure that the layer, the divider where the burlap is that splits the soil and the hydrogen is approximately an inch above the flood layer. This way you don't get any water wicking into the soil, and we can maintain both independent pH levels in the soil and the water, so we can chelate more minerals per day. But also we can supplement that soil layer in any way that we need to.
Wow.
Without
that's really
getting
cool.
any of that supplementation into the water and affecting the fish in any way.
So what about some points as a grower concern, I'll call it? I love to really flush out cannabis to its
Sure.
extremity of ripening and the plant's completely yellow. What options do you have with that? Is that a weak point of an aquaponics system where?
Absolutely not. What you can do is you could pull the plant out, sit it on your,
Okay, so your
sit it
system,
outside
yeah.
for 5 minutes, flush the daylights out of it, put it back in your system, and do that maybe every 2 or 3 days, the last week or two of harvest, and you're going to get enough water through that. The only stuff you're going to get from your fish water is a small amount of nitrogen and phosphate, but because you're getting it from a bioavailable source through your bacteria, it's going to affect the flavor. It doesn't affect the flavor in any way.
So, or you can even, I'm thinking, as you said, pull the plant out if you just want to remove it from
Exactly.
the system for flush. Not an issue either. Simple enough. What else as far as, I'm trying to think, give me a bonus. There's got to be as far as taste. I mean, have you noticed, if you've grown this strain, you know it, and then you grew it in aquaponics, what different attributes will you see?
Actually, the last strain that we did as a control versus the aquaponics was actually Island Sweet Skunk, which I believe you've talked about
Yes.
previously on the show.
Can I get a cut? I love that strain. Actually, I have one going now, but I've seen a few different varieties of it.
We actually have a monster picture on our website there of a Monster Island Sweet Skunk, and that one, the flavor and the aroma was just unparalleled to the hydro and the soil, even the soil control. The soil was close, but
So the soil control, though, was kind of like whatever, somewhat organic, natural soil.
Yep.
Like it wasn't like you're in peat feeding a GH3 part or something. It was
No.
Okay, but still, you said the complexity and the differences in the flavors were just way more noticeable.
much
and
more.
That's cool, man.
Now,
I'm gonna
what do
try
you
some.
attribute that to?
So as far as we can tell, we could attribute it to all the different bacteria. The fact that the plant has twice the number of active bacteria available to its root system than any other form of growing. You have an organic hydroponics, you only have the aquatic bacteria, even if you're running it where you're keeping all your microbes alive. You only have aquatic bacteria, which are in an aquarium, and those work great, but you're losing out on those soil microbes that chelate things and make different minerals available at different levels as well. So, you're getting the absolute maximum number of bacteria species available to your root system that you could possibly have.
I dig it, man. I dig it.
So I'm just, I'm trying to play the naysayers, like not the naysayers, but again, more concerns. What about?
Sure.
They've been doing this since
I
Thanksgiving,
know, it's
man.
awesome.
All right,
I'm going to take
Golly.
the class. I just,
Absolutely.
trying to get the knowledge out there. People are concerned about, let's say, how about a difference in, obviously people can grow herb to push full-on weight and have a big chlorophyll-y, whatever bud that tastes horrible. I think the way
Use
things...
Cool Bloom in the end, man. The last 3 days, you just bomb it with Cool Bloom.
Yeah, right before harvest. Do you see a sacrifice at all in yield on genetics going across the board? Was there, in that control, for example, how did yield handle?
So until we actually started off, when we very first started the program, with just putting them directly into the grow media. And what happened was we were having yield issues, and the issue was with potassium and phosphate, and making those bioavailable. Now that we've using the dual root zone and we can supplement the upper part of the root zone, just like in nature, that's where the majority of your nutrients are going to be. The upper 4 to 6 inches is where most plants chelate a lot of their micronutrients. Since we started doing that, we've had very similar, maybe sometimes slightly under, sometimes slightly over, but for the most part, running very similar to our controls.
Yeah, that's slightly under with that fantastic flavor. Like as I'm looking at a picture of you here on YouTube with some big old trees behind you hanging out.
Yeah, boy.
I mean, I think that's where, if you're in this at all, obviously for your own personal use or the market, that's what counts these days, man. The more and more herb that's grown, the more important that it tastes great, and it's just awesome.
We actually have a new commercial model that we're working on to actually get rid of that last little bit of difference, and we're awaiting results right now. I don't have anything to share yet, but we actually finished construction on that about 2 weeks ago, so we're going to know hopefully this new method of working just a slight modification on the dual root zone.
And when you say commercial model,
the idea is to basically so the other benefits of aquaponics is the fact you're using 90% less water than traditional hydroponics, because you don't have to dump your reservoirs, and you don't have to, if you're in soil, you don't have to, you're losing a lot of water because you pour it in there and it comes out the bottom and everything else. In aquaponics, you're recirculating that water over and over, so places like in California and stuff like that, their water prices are going sky high, along with the electricity and everything else. So one of the best ways they could do that would be to switch to a more more cost-effective way to grow, and do it that way. So we're trying to develop a model that would work better for dispensaries and other people that want to go on a larger scale and keep it organic.
Do you have any commercial growers here in Colorado that are like close to making the switch, or pretty darn interested in what you guys have going on?
We've had 2 estimates for dispensaries,
cool.
But we haven't actually had any purchases yet. But it's very
you guys are
very recent.
breaking ground, and you got to put the proof in the pudding, which it looks like you're really figuring out. I mean, the concerns I've had, I said, are being able to flush right, or when I want to add at this one point in bloom a nice. Sometimes I'll use a soil synthetic mix where I'm trying to get just for this watering. I want to get a little peak in it. But it sounds like you figured out with that, what would you call it, like a dual root zone?
Yep.
You can really achieve those things, and then the removable. Now, when you're removing a plant from the system, these are net bottom pots is what they are?
Yep.
So do you have a ton of roots that you have to...
No, not really. We actually put a piece of burlap in the bottom, and the roots kind of hit the burlap and kind of slow down. So you do get a small percentage of roots, but we actually give them a quarter turn every day, so we're actively pruning them pretty regularly anyway. So
you got to have good savings. I'm thinking your main savings in this obviously is nutrients, and when I like most people's fear with getting into something, I think the learning curve is getting it set up and cycling and functioning properly like a little ecosystem. But once that's happening, I'm assuming everything usually runs pretty damn stable.
Yeah, it's very hard to crash it, especially if you're maintaining it properly, because you have so many other microbes and other things going on. We have no root rot because there's so many other microbes that are actively out-competing the root rot, because it just never gets a chance to get colonized. It's immediately eaten by something else. We don't have a lot of the other problems that you run into with hydroponics, because we have active microbes that are consuming any waste that's sitting around that's going to get funky and get...
Hold on, Scotty's salivating, talking about microbes.
Man, I ain't talking no shit, man.
I love it. What about now pest control? What can I mean, I love Azadirect and Azamax. I think you can use those products fine on the top end of your canopy and stuff. What do you guys do?
If you tarped off your grow bed, you could. I don't like those because neem extracts can actually kill your bacteria. It's actually something else that can be a concern for organic hydroponic.
All right.
People.
I got to get a take on that real quick, because I've heard from multiple people that should definitely know what they're talking about as far as saying, if you want to, and I do it myself, I drench probably maybe 4 times in a grow with a pretty heavy Azamax to my soil. Just for the heck of it, I want to get it in the plant systemically. I was told that plays friendly with everything else I'm using.
Sure.
And it's not an issue, but you're saying it is having a negative effect on some soil life or beneficial bacteria?
I'm not sure if Azamax is, but I know that other neem products definitely, in our testing, immediately crashed our system, and they basically killed the nitrifying bacteria when they made it into the grow bed.
And that's probably a little bit, we're talking a few different bacteria between what's working well in aquaponics versus living soil per se, but Regardless, so what do you guys use when a problem presents itself? If it's, let's go with the basics: mildew, mites, and then down below in your root system sounds like it's always money. But unless it can be problems with bugs and stuff.
Sure. So for mites, we really like Kapow. It's castor oil and lemongrass oil. It doesn't seem to have any effect on the bacteria or the fish. For powdery mildew, we actually will use potassium bicarbonate, or we'll use monopotassium phosphate, either or mixed up in a little bit of a solution, and we just use as a foliar, and that works really well. The other stuff that we'll occasionally use for powdery mildew, especially if I happen to, this first time I discover it, it's on 2 or 3 leaves, I might hit that area with Serenade, especially if it's before early off in flower, just because I love using the bacteria rather than some other form.
I sprayed it once in the house, and my wife was just like, what the hell, man? What the hell did you do?
Definitely smells funky.
Humidity issues potentially inside with this type of setup because of, you get just water everywhere pretty much.
Sure. So in Colorado, if you have,
probably creates just
it's
the perfect humidity.
Not too much. Yeah, in Colorado, it's not really a problem. I actually have quite a few fish tanks in my house, and I don't know if it ever gets above 40.
Yeah.
Aside from my AP systems and
I think I'm the only
else,
guy in Colorado with humidity issues, man.
But
this is true.
But yeah, if you're in a more humid state, you might need to ventilate a little bit more. But that's something that you should be doing if you have a grow room anyway. So generally with normal ventilation, it's not too much of an issue. It's maybe in some parts of Florida, but that would be about the only place that we've ever had any kind of issues. But again, that's really easy to solve. You could take your same potassium bicarbonate you use for pH up, mix in a little bit of water, and just spray the walls. Raise the pH. That stuff won't
what
grow.
do you guys keep your pH at? Close to neutral?
So we keep our pH at around 6.8.
And how often is once the system's stabilized, if that's a word for it, are you adjusting pH once a day? You check it.
So what happens is all your nitrifying bacteria will actually lower the pH over time. So you need to have something like calcium carbonate or dolomite, which is calcium magnesium carbonate, or some other substance in a little pouch or something to dissolve, which will help balance it out. And if you have that amount right, you can actually kind of ignore your pH. It'll stay dead on as long as you're feeding the fish the same rate. Okay. That's going to dissolve at the same rate and hold your pH steady. And it'll also add your calcium for you, which is really nice.
Wow, that sounds cool.
So you can basically have your CalMag stabilize your pH for you.
Well, what's up with? I want to talk about your classes here real quick. It looks like you got a few different classes. Aquaponics immersion course is one. Aquaponics fundamentals course, and then topic focus classes. I'm assuming Aquaponics fundamental course is your intro course if you want to come take a class.
So actually,
I'm assuming the immersion course is done inside a fish tank.
Yeah.
So the fundamentals is a 1 day. The immersion is a 2 day. In the fundamentals, you just build a little 1-bed system. In the immersion, you build a 3-bed system, which is much larger. And those are specifically on aquaponics and not necessarily geared towards cannabis, although they do touch on some of the grow methods. And then we have I teach a 9-hour class all about cannabis production in aquaponics, as well as...
And is that the Potent Ponics course?
Yep. I
like it.
We have
is that officially the name?
Yep.
Sweet.
Potent Ponics will be our brand line for all of our cannabis-related aquaponics
is that
stuff.
Saturday or Sunday class? You said 9-hour class?
Yes, it's a 1 day. It's 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we cover everything. Harvest, curing, some extractions.
Can you smoke while you're in school?
Just thinking the same thing. How fucked up is that, man? I was thinking the same. Then I thought to myself, I'll just eat an edible. I'll be fine.
I don't think any of us will say anything if it smells a little strange outside.
Don't smoke before you go to class, guys.
Yeah, you definitely need to remember
right
stuff,
out the other.
Hey, man, that depends on the individual. I know people that they're not getting their degree in accounting unless they smoke when they go to class. So it just depends on how your brain works. And they are older than 21, and their brain is fully developed just 'cause there's so much damn news hype about the brain and weed. But regardless, let's we were talking earlier. Let's get something going on for our listeners. I mean, can we do a little promo for you guys somehow?
Sure. We're gonna give out a free voucher for a class today. So however you guys want to decide that.
Cool. Sounds awesome.
We'll
Let's do the raffle right now. Oh my God, I won!
Scotty, you
won!
won!
Right, Scotty won,
dude.
I know. I'm definitely gonna take one of these. I want to see mainly I like once it's going the simplicity of it, and then assuming I'm going to be saving money on the nutrients are pretty compared to what the nutrients we need for our fish. I'm assuming that's like a quarter of the cost of any of this retail on the shelf. hydroponic nutrients and stuff like
Yep.
that. Big savings.
Yep. So especially during bloom, you can supplement with your standard soil bloom, organic soil blooms and stuff like that. But you're only supplementing that tiny, the half of a pot soil layer. You're not having to dose an entire pot or an entire hydroponic system. So you're going to end up using about a fifth to a sixth of the nutrients in your overall run. And the fact that you have all those living bacteria makes them immediately bioavailable because they're instantly consumed and converted into stuff.
Word, I think
it.
what should we do, Scotty? Like,
know,
you guys
man-
do comment section and tell them
Yeah.
why you want to do this?
Leave us a comment that somewhere says, I want in.
That would be over on dudegrows.com. Right on the homepage, you'll see if you go hit the episode and scroll down.
Yeah, show 49. We'll just have show 49. It'll be front and center right there.
Yeah, hit up some comments of why you want to take this. I'm sorry for all you listeners that are everywhere else in the world, but obviously this is going to pertain to people here in Colorado, unless somebody wants to fly out and hang out,
I'm not sorry because this shit's global, man. This shit's nationwide. He's all over YouTube, which is cool as hell. If you need help and you're really interested in this, you can do it, man. It don't matter
But
if
I've
you're
also seen with the grow house here in Colorado that does aquaponics, they do courses. People it's their vacation. They'll come out here from all over the nation to do a class, which is pretty sweet. So I mean, this will pertain to anybody if you want to come on out and hang out.
Yeah, I know you got guys in Florida that are giving it a shot, right? And
Yep. We also have friends in Florida that also do classes, so it's all over. You can find a place near you to learn how to get started in aquaponics, and then through our YouTube channels, we'll have regular stuff put out soon, and we'll have a whole new website all devoted just for cannabis called Potent Ponics.
Yeah, man, there's no better time in the world to be interested in things and to learn, man. I mean, you can become an expert smoking weed in your underwear, man. I love it. I love this world.
I'm going to have to try and get my hands, guys, on some of that ISS, the Potent Ponic sweet skunk, we'll call it, because I want to give that a comparison. I'm excited to try and taste that. So
yeah, I want to see the dude add a little bit of fish into his dank, man.
Well, we always talk, it's a completely different thing. We say about how the fish brings the dank when we're adding fish fertilizer at the proper times in bloom, and such a great byproduct of the industry, the fish industry, that works great in indoor gardening. So you heard it, guys. Steve, did we forget anything? Any important points you want? Or
I got a question. So say that definitely piqued my interest. So say I wanted a starter system for this. What help me build a starter system?
Sure. So you're going to need a minimum 40-gallon reservoir, and then you're going to need some kind of grow tray that's a minimum of, I'd say, at least 6 or 8 inches deep, just so you can at least get the bottom half of your pots fully submerged, and set yourself up with a flood and drain system and get started that way.
So like a 3x3 or something, a 3x3 tray over?
Yeah, you could even get away with something as small as a 2x4, but a 3x3 obviously would be better.
I say ramp the 4x4, guys, and all this we're talking about. If you have a local grow store anyway, they all carry these hydroponic trays for flood tables, and they'll work great. You can probably build your own thing with pond liner or something if you'd like as well. But yeah, go ahead from there. Growing media for it, hydrotin.
Hydrotin, you can use grow stone. You can even use river rock. As long as it's pH inert and it won't alter your pH, it's safe to use. Even some lava rock, so they'll be careful with lava rock because it can leach other strange things.
A little bit of silica rock, maybe.
But silica rock's fine as well.
Interesting.
Whatever you want to do.
Interesting. And then, so what are we out of a 3x3? I guess I can put that under a 600 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Couple pumps, right? So
you just need a pump on a timer and
okay.
Your standard flood and drain plumbing and set yourself up. You want to set the flood up on 15 minutes on, 30 minutes off, and you're ready to rip.
Basically setting up the typical flood and drain, except you're adding fish and getting it going.
And as all the hydro people know, the water, when it goes up and down, acts as a diaphragm and helps your plant root, basically breathes for your plant roots, which is the other advantage to growing the way that we're growing in aquaponics, is you get that nice, real good gas exchange, and it forces that air through even your soil layer as long as you have it planted at the right depth, which basically power breathes your soil and your lower root zone and gets that real good gas exchange to get that growth speed up.
Damn, man, I like it. I'm going to take your class, homie.
I'm for reals, man. Maybe we'll take that class when the listener wins the class. We'll hang out with somebody. That's what we like to do, is hang out.
That's right, man.
So yeah, hit it up, guys. The aquaponicsource.com. You heard it. Free 9-hour class being offered up. Go comment on this episode. Tell us why you need it. Why you need to grow the dank. And we'll definitely get somebody learning. And Steve, we appreciate you being on the show.
And if you see us there, don't get us high before, man. All right, I want to remember this shit.
Nothing like talking aquaponics here in the pepper grow room with lights everywhere when it's like 6 degrees outside.
Love
so appreciate
it,
you coming down in the cold weather and snow. And yeah, guys, hopefully we'll have Steve back for a sit-in. It'd be cool to hang out after I take the class and bullshit about what's growing on. Sorry.
Hell yeah, Steve. Thanks a million, buddy.
Very cool. Thank you, guys.
Work, guys.
All
We'll be right back. Dude grows.